Start us off, Carter.
Oh yeah!
I can't tell if he's still going or if his mic. Yep, his mic cut out for
Brother.
a second.
Oh yeah, my mic definitely cut out then. I was still going.
Oh man.
And welcome back to the Oh Yeah Brother podcast, where we see how long we can say "Oh yeah, brother" without seriously injuring our throats. But actually, it's Kevin Explains Wrestling: Road to WrestleMania uh,
Yeah.
plus Knuckles. And Knuckles. Damn it, I got the fucking title wrong. Anyway, I'm Carter,
I'm Kevin,
and
and
what has been going on in the world of wrestling?
so we're gonna talk about the most recent premium live event, the
Ooh.
Elimination Chamber. So we gave like a last time we gave like a what's what about it. Here's all the fun history behind it. Here's all the stats.
Hmm.
But then the actual event happened, and let me tell you, I woke up at 4 a.m. to watch it because it was held in Australia. So, yeah.
Oh yes, the bluey one.
Yep, the Bluey place.
Jesus, I,
Uh,
I, that's probably not the best way to put it, but I'll stand behind it.
yep. So, typically after the live events in at least America, or at least within reasonable American like time zone standards,
Mhm.
now that they do the after show conferences, press conferences for big events, they'll do it after. But when it's somewhere like when they were in Europe, when they're in Saudi Arabia and in Australia, they do it beforehand, and
Huh.
it is kind of interesting because it's like a last second building up hype thing. Um,
Right. Right.
it was hosted by uh, Grayson Waller, who is like one of the top Australian stars that the WWE currently has. He's got
Mhm.
this douchebag vibe esque thing about him.
Right. Right.
Um, when they were last in England for oh god, what event were they in England for? Some event, I think SummerSlam. No, it wasn't SummerSlam. I don't remember, but they were in England and they did. He came out and he's like, like England sucks. Let's have WrestleMania in Australia. And then Cena's like, John Cena came out and is like, no, England should have it. Kind of hyping up the possibility of international WrestleManias, which
Right. Ooh, interesting.
very fun and interesting prospect. Um, kind of hype about the possibility of that because of just the amount of revenue it brings in. And
Mhm.
after I go to it in Philly, I'm gonna have my content filled of what what could be there. So like I'll
Oh
have
yeah.
and this WrestleMania is shaping up to be like a absolute banger as of right now. So I'm stoked. Big things that they hyped about the press conference is they had a couple confrontations. They had it was pretty much like their very good talkers in their promo ones come
Mhm.
out and hype up their matches, hype up the crowd for WrestleMania and stuff. And that was pretty much it. Grayson Waller did do a shoey with Rhea Ripley, who is the current women's champion and also Australian. And
Hmm.
it was just like it was a nice crowd hype thing, and the fans were seeming to love it. It was apparently stupidly hot there that at that time,
Mhm.
but it's like a fun change of pace, and it seemed it they were in character but not in character is the best way to describe it. Where it was like, oh, this is fun, having a great time in Australia, but I'm gonna kick your ass, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
kick your ass. I'm gonna kick your ass. So at that was kind of the pre-show or the press conference, and then there was like the kickoff pre-show that's like typically also on their YouTube channel and like for not free on Peacock or like for casual watchers or something like that on Peacock, and that's what started at 4 a.m. The pay per view still started at 5, but like the pre-show started at 4, and they just announced that Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell were gonna fight the Kabuki Warriors for the women's tag team match.
Wait, hold on, pause. The
Yes,
Kabuki Warriors?
Kabuki Warriors. Io Sky, Io Sky's the champion, but it's the regular women's one of the regular women's champions. The tag team, the Kabuki Warriors, consist mostly of Asuka and Kairi
Mm.
Sane. And both of them and Io Sky were all like semi-prominent Japanese talent before the world of WWE,
Mm.
and they come out in Kabuki mask.
Well,
Um,
that's pretty dope.
it was very much like a last-second add to it. Definitely. So Indy Hartwell, also an Australian. Even though she lost, it was very much like a nice little appetizer before the pay per view because they did a very good job. They put on a good match, even though the Kabuki Warriors retained. But it was just like people are still getting settled in their seats. It's like let's toss this guy out for you. Let's let's make this known.
Mm-hmm.
And then during that time, they're doing like interviews. They're doing predictions, kind of like college game day. They got the round table and they're just chatting about what's going on and stuff. And they're
Oh,
show
that's it.
yeah.
Well, I was gonna say they do have Did Pat McAfee show up for this?
No, he wasn't at this one. He still hosts one of the commentators on Monday Night Raw, but he was not at this one because they when they go international like this
Mm.
for kind of it's because it was like they were in California the previous Monday, and then the following Monday they were Saturday they like Thursday, Friday, Saturday they were in Australia, but SmackDown was still being shown live, quote unquote. It was pre-recorded on Friday night, and then they were back in California that following Monday. So it's like they took a bare bones esque crew, um,
Right, that makes sense.
at least on a talent perspective. Um, some other things we learned or saw during this was Kevin Owens,
Mm-hmm.
solid wrestler, prominent wrestler. He showed up like when it's like Kevin Owens is making his way into arena, and they show him backstage, and he's walking in with a koala. That was kind of fun.
Right. If you're gonna spend the money to move it to Australia, you gotta play the hits. You gotta treat it like it's a secret episode, like Crocodile Dundee sequel.
Yeah. They showed the superstars kind of having fun in Australia and stuff, like scuba diving, going to the Perth Zoo and stuff, and then some other like I guess it's like what some was announced before it, some was announced after, but it was like part of the reason. So, um,
Mm.
so Bronson Reed, who is a prominent, who's like a big guy wrestler, one of the huge guys, incredibly talented. He was scheduled to be there originally in the plans, and they mentioned this on Twitter after the fact. Um, they talked about how he mentions he's like, listen, I was possibly supposed to schedule. Seth Rollins was healing up his back for Mania. He would have Bronson Reed would have probably had that match because Australia loves Australian talent,
Mm.
but they didn't do it because of Seth's injury, and he didn't make any sort of appearance or any sort of showing because his wife just had a baby.
Oh,
And yep, and he was like, he actually was kind of thanking Triple H, and Triple H was like replied to his tweet and was like, "Listen, you're great, but this is an important event for your family. Like,
mm.
sorry but not sorry." No, he didn't say like sorry but not sorry, but it was like a, hey, like, trust me, this like is one of the most important moments too. I can. They'll probably go back to Australia.
Right.
Um, so there was that. Another big thing is they had to travel the Elimination Chamber because there's only one. Pretty
Oh,
much
that's interesting.
around the entire world because it's when they got it to like the Mediterranean Bay,
Mhm.
but in the Suez Canal there was reports of pirates looking to possibly hijack that ship. So they shipped it all the way back to America, all the way from like East Coast. They've trucked it East Coast to West Coast, and then they shipped it all the way to Australia.
That's wild.
Yeah, which is kind of insane. So like the crew traveling with the chamber travels for like 38 hours straight through like around the world, which is kind of cool, not going to lie, but it was
Right.
a little bit of a scramble for them to set up. And then
Right. This wasn't like a. This was clearly not a staged thing. This wasn't like a bit. This
yeah,
clearly was like, oh, we actually have to handle this.
yeah, exactly. It was like something that kind of offhandedly mentioned a little bit, and it's just like, hey, just so people know this did happen, which is why it seems like we kind of are rushing to finish the cage.
Right.
Um,
Uh, but they got it on time, right?
yep,
Like
they
they
got
were
it.
able to
They were
actually
able to
physically
set it
set it
up.
up.
They were able to get it going. Not a problem there, but it was just like they were almost down to the buzzer with setting it up,
Jesus.
and there weren't any
This
major unscripted faults in it. There was like it's the elimination chamber. A door is gonna break at some point. Something's gonna be used
right.
as a weapon that shouldn't be. But it was fun and different, or not fun and
Yeah. I was
different.
gonna
It
say,
was
in terms of like technical difficulties,
yeah.
like, are there a lot of them? Like, has like, would it be an unprecedented thing for the cage to be like not there?
That would have been bad, especially if it's the theme of the pay per view.
Right. Well,
Um,
I mean that's fair, but
that would have yeah, but this, um, but usually like there are known to be errors and stuff. Um, Typically it's like minor like timing errors or pyrotechnic errors and stuff like that. Like
mm,
actually at an I think it was still the No Way Out pay per view, but for the Elimination Chamber match one year, the Undertaker's pyro was mistimed, and his jacket caught on fire. He was fine.
oh geez,
He was fine. He competed in the match like it was nothing. But
damn, he got wicked witched.
yeah,
That's
pretty
a fun
much.
reference for all you cinephiles out there.
Yeah. Um. So there was that, and then the biggest news before the Elimination Chamber was announced was R-Truth was going to be there and make an appearance. However, there was some unfortunate accident and he went to Austria instead of Australia and was very confused why no one was at the hotel or in the arena was acting like he was crazy.
You know, I do wonder how they're going to keep escalating the silly shenanigans of this man.
it's
That is beautiful.
it's like a they always find another way and it's the fun level of confusion that they put behind him where they can make things happen. All right. And then for this, I'm going to kind of just talk about some big moments and stuff like that. Um, for like each of the matches slash
Mm.
promotion, like the big promo shoot of Grayson Wallace show. So, shall we get started with the first match of the night? Do you want to take a guess what the first match of the night was?
Oh, I'm. Yeah, I'm not. I still feel like I'm learning. I feel like I still have a lot to learn on that front of like properly identifying what they put in the headline or
Mm-hmm.
like put in order. So I feel like I'll let you
Yeah.
reveal
So
that.
if you're not, if you are not last, you are first. That is the goal. You want to be the opening match, and that match was the women's elimination chamber match.
Ooh.
So, uh, we had obviously 6 contestants. We had Becky Lynch, Naomi, recently returned from TNA, Tiffany Stratton, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, and then Bianca Belair. So it started off with Becky and Naomi, and it was a very slow start in the best possible way. It was a lot of technical style wrestling, so a lot of grappling, a lot of like pin attempts, arm drags, not a lot of punching. It was
Hmm.
very it's it's a great momentum builder cuz you're not super tired yet, so you can really focus on looking aesthetically well while
Hmm.
doing basic moves, but you're not so long into the match where you have to be doing crazy moment after crazy moment after crazy moment. Is you can kind of take a like take it slow and build it up, which is kind of nice. It's good storytelling too.
Right.
Um, but yeah, they were just building a lot of momentum, and then the third one in was Tiffany Stratton, kind of the newest girl on the block in this. I'll talk a little bit more about her, but she came out to a huge crowd pop. The crowd loved when she entered the match, and she used to be a gymnast and was
Hmm.
going through a bunch of crazy moves. She was very um, I don't want to say aerial, but like she was doing a lot of flips and stuff. A lot of flexibility was shown. So it was all crazy good talent, and it was kind of like all right, like this was like the first time she was given like more legitimate showcase spot.
Hmm.
So,
How new is she? How long has she been on the scene?
so that's actually a great question. So she's been on the main roster, so SmackDown or Raw. She's on
Hmm.
SmackDown for a couple months, not super long,
Oh,
where
geez.
it wouldn't be unheard of to measure in weeks instead of months.
Right.
And she has been when she was in NXT, so the developmental scene, she was kind of not a crowd favorite, but like she was like the bad girl, like Little Miss Princess kind of vibes.
Hmm.
And she jumped through leaps and bounds for there. Her entire professional wrestling career is shorter than Roman Reigns' current title reign. He's been the champion for well over 1,000 days now, but she has made her in ring debut in NXT before there, and got put to the main roster and is in big matches since then,
Hmm.
which is kind of a crazy amount of time. Like, typically it takes them maybe a couple years or so, especially if they don't have any previous experience, but she just kind of learned everything under the sun.
Huh.
Um,
And I guess sort of piggybacking off of that too, how long is someone usually on? Like, how long is a career in terms of like? And I don't mean necessarily mean like the big guys who I assume are allowed to be there as long as their bodies can handle it. I mean like, what is the average lifespan of a person on the main roster?
so it really varies, but like some people will wrestle on the main roster like for secretly very long. Like
Mm.
I've never known a WWE without Kofi Kingston, and he wrestled in a match last Monday, and I've been watching since like 2007,
Ooh.
and I've never known it without him. Like, and he's
Huh.
been wrestling on the main roster since then. Some wrestlers are for scary longer than that.
Hmm.
Big like everyone was talking about how the big year was 2002 because that's when Batista, also known as Dave Batista the actor, Brock
Hmm.
Lesnar, also known as currently redacted, John Cena, and Randy Orton were brought in as like the new guys. They were the rookies then, and then Brock, Cena, and Randy have all wrestled a match within the last year.
Right.
But that's like talent who takes care of themselves well, does good. I would say the average lifespan is probably us without going somewhere else and saying WWE's main roster. I would say probably around 7 to 10 years because time is an illusion, but also the factor of they don't like you're not going to spend the entire time healthy. Everyone gets hurt at least once,
Hmm.
and that'll take them out for a while.
And honestly, that feels kind of low compared to some of the nonsense we've watched in terms of like,
Football.
the ways they throw their bodies around.
Oh yeah,
And also,
absolutely.
yes, compared to football.
Anyway, after Tiffany Stratton came in, Liv Morgan was the next one, and this is her fifth women's elimination chamber match. They were she was like she's currently the most attended person in
Hmm.
the match, and she starts the aggression. She throws Tiffany into the glass or plexi or whatever you want to call it, covering the chamber pods, and Naomi did from the top. Ooh, this is actually a really cool spot. We'll have to probably watch later. But Naomi did a sunset flip, so you basically flip over somebody, power bomb to Liv from the pod. So she jumped off the pod, looked crazy, and then she got eliminated by Tiffany Stratton, seeing that secret opportunity, and got out before everybody even entered. Which kind of a hot thing, not a hot take, but like a oh snap, like you just got brought back to be eliminated before even everybody enters the match. Either something happened or this is building up for a story. Um,
Right, right.
but once Liv Morgan enters, she came in with a lot more chaotic energy and started picking up the pace, and a lot of more aggression came out. And then Raquel Rodriguez came in, huge woman, built
Hmm.
strong like ox, and she just started swinging people around like it was nothing, which is kind of terrifying to see the ability of someone to swing another human around. Because sure, some people are small, but it's still terrifying how with ease they do it. They
Hmm.
and because she was like considered the big man for the match, they did the dramatic thing where like all three others that are in are trying to pin her, and then she kicks out, and they all dramatically fly away, like crazy, like super over the top, just go whoa,
Hmm.
and the crowd was not taking kindly to that and was calling BS.
Right.
And then came in Bianca Belair, who is arguably one of the strongest people on the roster, pound for pound, let alone out of the women. Um, Definitely the muscle. Starts manhandling everyone, including Raquel, and then things. Now that the last person is in the match, things start going crazy. Um, Raquel Rodriguez got was like spread out, and Liv Morgan jumped off the pod, which is probably around a 6 to 8 foot tall jump. Jumped off the pod on sat on her from that height. Um, before and that was right as she was getting chased by on one side Tiffany Stratton and another side Becky Lynch.
Hmm.
So they both made it to the top, and she jumped, and they looked at each other and just kind of did the all right, we're gonna start fighting now thing too.
Right.
And then Becky Lynch gets thrown off the top, and you can tell they're prepping something big because a lot of the girls are just kind of like all getting up at the same time and the same spot. And then Tiffany Stratton did a pretty much a perfect front flip onto the crowd, like the group of them.
Jesus.
Um, which phenomenal. Like it was picture perfect. And then shortly after that, Liv eliminates Tiffany, and the crowd boos the shit out of her. And then after a little bit of time, Bianca Belair eliminates Raquel with her finisher, where she literally has her over the shoulders and tosses her. Um, so that eliminates Bianca or Raquel, and then Bianca tries to do a 450 splash. So you do a somersault 450 degrees to land on Becky, but Becky's pulls her knees up, and that's considered like the counter to like those flip moves is their knees come up, and as Bianca lands on her knees, Liv Morgan rolls up Bianca and gets eliminated, or eliminates Bianca. So it's just Liv and Becky, and they kind of brawl it out a little bit, but Becky hits her finisher on Liv Morgan for the win. And now she is going. At the time, she was going to face either Rhea Ripley or Nia Jax, whoever won their match at WrestleMania. Um,
Nice.
some post-match thoughts about it. It was nice to see Naomi back in like WWE capacity and kind of get a little bit of the spotlight back. And Raquel Rodriguez looks super strong. Bianca showcased her talent. Like those two were making very good case of themselves. Liv Morgan with another one of her being a runner-up to an event just like she was for Royal Rumbles and stuff. She is the eternal women's runner-up. She is there. That is literally her story of always the bridesmaid and never the bride. And then Becky worked great, had great crowd work like at the pre-show and stuff. She clearly showed off why she was at the top of the brand. And then there's Tiffany Stratton, who did not just sell me on her, sold like almost the entire community on her and why she is a fucking great talent. Which
Um,
great for her.
yeah. Question. I guess like as you're describing this match and describing genuinely insane things, I guess my question is in terms of like the physicality of the fights. It's interesting to think of like the idea of like, oh, this is more grapple heavy, this is more kick heavy, this is more
Yeah.
throw heavy. How like does the women's matches do the women's matches generally have a different tempo or like sort of approach? And I guess that's painting with a really broad brush, but do you
Pre-
find that?
previously during that like I think what did I refer to it as like the big diva era, it was like that. Um,
Mhm.
it was drastically different where it was kind of like maybe a shitty gimmick match. There was going to be a lot more slapping and hair pulling and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But now, like this modern era of women's wrestling, it is all pretty much the same stuff the guys would do with same kind of the same move styles as them, just what fits with their own individual characters, which is a lot nicer because it's not just we're going to put a pretty face in front of the crowd. It's we're going to put women's wrestlers in front of the crowd.
Right. And like it's not because I've seen some highlights that get a little I'm trying to think of the diplomatic word for it, but like I mean, we've talked about it. Like the whole idea of like earlier women's wrestling was like very much like, um, this is for you guys. I'm assuming most of that has
Yeah,
been sanded out. Like they're not
yeah,
doing
they're
stuff like that anymore. It's actual like technique and like,
yeah. Once
oh, this is just the. It's again, it's like men's basketball versus
yeah,
women's basketball, where it's like, well, this is just the same thing but with a different gender.
yeah. Once one, it's like now it went from like every single night to like once in a blue moon they might do like in a little bit of a like slightly sexist bit, but I think the WWE is going to be doing away with that after all of Vince's allegations, and I think that's for the best. They're not doing away with women's wrestling; they're just doing away with the like super, um, like sexist stylings. Like they used to do like costume contest around Halloween and stuff like that.
Oh dear.
It was pretty bad. Um, the match, which after that was for the tag team titles. It was Damian Priest and Finn Balor representing the Judgment Day with Dirty Dom Mysterio kind of following their heels against a relatively new combination for the main roster of Pete Dune, formerly known as Butch, formerly known as Pete Dune, and Tyler Bate. So while there, it was like a tornado style tag match, which means everyone was in at once pretty much.
Mhm.
And Dirty Dom is he interrupted the announcer trying to be like start interrupting the to do into sorry, words are hard. Introducing and interrupting look way too similar on my notes.
Oh, you're
Um
fine.
he's doing the introduction for the Judgment Day, and first off is getting booed by I believe 52,000 people plus.
Lovely.
Um he is covered in
Glad to know
hate
it's
and
international hatred.
yeah, he's covered in layers of hatred. It's fantastic. And he got jumped by Pete Dune and Tyler Bates' tag team is called the New Catch Republic, and they just jumped him. And this match, like as opposed to the other previous match where it started off slow and built, this match started off guns a blazing. It was it was like a perfect storm of quality wrestlers with different styles or similar styles that all just mesh together. Like Pete Dune, his style is kind of like a brawl, like a technical style brawler where he's like up in their face. His whole like part of his like bit is he likes to do like these finger bend technique like looking things where it like destroys people's fingers and stuff like that. Um, but he's like always like right into the thick of it. Tyler
Mhm.
Bate is kind of like a little bit more of a high flyer style. He wrestles a little bit quicker, a little bit more kicks. Finn Balor does a very technical style, and like so, like all three of these guys had their start in Europe,
Mhm.
and so it's like a lot. It's not as flashy as the American style. It's not as like grapply. It's a little grapply like the Japanese style, but it's not like they're not doing like crazy kicks and stuff like that. They're more on the lines of like different types of arm holds and locks and just punches and taking a beating. And then
Right.
Damian Priest he was like the big man because he was taller than everyone else. He was bigger than anyone else. So he's the one that he's just tossing people backwards and they're running back at him. Really
Mhm.
putting in just the job as the muscle.
Right.
And it made for some fantastic choreography. Um, the
Is there for like Roman Reigns or like for Dirty Roman as the heel? Do heels tend to have similar styles, or does it evolve over the years with the sport?
it's a
Like, is there one consistent pattern for like who the bad guy is in terms of his power set?
power set. No, it's kind of like there's like a couple like classifications. There's kind of like I guess the best way to describe it is like there's like the scummy guy,
Mhm.
and then there's like the the big boss vibe, or like the kaiju esque vibe of like the big man. The big boss is like he's usually leading a faction, kind of a tough guy, usually good. And then there's like the slimy guy who's always using dirty tricks and sliming his way around.
Mhm.
And then there like the best way to describe it is like there's like the anti-hero that tends to lean evil,
Hmm.
where current examples of them is Drew McIntyre and Gunther, where they are both technically considered bad guys, but their justification and their reasoning for things, crowd kind of gets behind, but they also
Hmm.
have to take out the clearly good guys in order for it to happen. And they don't always succumb to like scummy tactics. That's more of the big boss kind of vibe, where he's the big boss is like Roman Reigns, where it's like, all right, I'm looking to lose. Get out of here, Solo. Get out of here, Jimmy. Um, but Dom got thrown out. He got shown the boot. The referee kicked him out from being ringside.
Damn.
And Bait and Dune were throwing tag team moves out the wazoo. And um, Damian Priest had a little small botch. He stumbled a little too low for what he wanted, but it wasn't. It wasn't like a career ender or like a match ender. It was like it's like he slipped a little early, but not a problem. And then um, the NCR was looking like they were gonna superplex Damian Priest off the second rope, but it was on where Finn Balor was, and Balor tagged in. And as Balor tagged in, Priest reversed it and hits them with a double choke slam. So he choke slams both of them,
Hmm.
and then Finn Balor hits his one of his finishers, the coup de grace, aka he jumps off the rope, the top rope, and plants his feet into your chest, and he hits that
How high
on.
is the top rope again?
I think it's a little like between 4.5 and 5 feet tall, but that's not including jumping height. Um,
Ooh.
but yeah, it hits the coup de grace on Pete Dune and pins him for the win. Balor and Priest retain for the Judgment Day, and they put on an absolute banger of a match.
Hmm.
Um, Fun fact: all these guys that were active participants in the match were all Triple H NXT guys. So Triple H hasn't always just been in control of the WWE. He has had a stint in charge of the developmental scene, and he brought in and made Finn Balor, like who like he brought in a lot of independent wrestlers or like Japanese wrestlers, people from other promotions, and he helped them hone and make them look great with the help of people like Dusty Rhodes, Cody
Hmm.
Rhodes' legitimate father and stuff. And he made like he helped Sami Zayn form his like actually Sami Zayn and not wrestling in a mask called El Generico. Um, True story. On the independent scene, he brought in talent, not just this guy's
Hmm.
got the build. He looks it. It's like nope. This guy's been wrestling on the indie scene for 5 years, and he is a phenomenal talent. Let's help elevate his career. And all these guys in this match were like that, where they were in like they were Triple H NXT guys. He was like one of those people that he was the one that campaigned for them. And it seemed a little bit like a last second filler match that they decided,
Hmm.
with the NCR being new and the Judgment Day being like the strongest faction out there. But they put on an absolute banger. This was also a case that the tag team titles, because they were unified under the Usos for the Bloodline. So they hold both the SmackDown and Raw tag teams titles, but they just like this match made a case for them to split it because there's just so much like a big part of Vince McMahon's like late last era, I guess, is he seemed to not like tag team wrestling, and they always seem to feud with each other. They always seem to have problems with each other at some point. And they were this kind of was like, oh, these are people that make sense. They were friends before coming into the WWE. They wrestled in Japan together, and it's just like it's more about chemistry mixes instead of just throwing people in tag team matches and seeing what happened. And yeah, they have so much strong tag teams now that it's just kind of like we got to do something. We got to split the titles up.
Right, right.
All right, and then so halfway through the show, it was the Grayson Waller effect, which is like a talk show segment, and it was hosted by Grayson Waller. He was supposed to be kind of douchey, but he was played a little extra good guy for the home crowd, keep them happy. And then, um, so he also did a shoey with a UFC fighter. Unfortunately, I did not recall the UFC fighter's name, but Grayson Waller, as he's like gets his way into the ring, Austin Theory shows up and starts talking shit on Vegemite and hypes up Bloomin' Onions.
That's hilarious.
Austin Theory and Grayson Waller are kind of considered friends, but yeah, he was just like, yeah, he shows up and hypes up Bloomin' Onions.
Fun fact, none of the three people who founded Outback Steakhouse had ever been to Australia
Nope.
before creating the restaurant.
They were all in
Truly.
Florida.
It's the most. You can't say that isn't quintessential American. Design a kitschy cultural place based on a culture you've never been to, and then caricaturize it with beers the size of your head and fried onions.
Yeah. But Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes come out because they were the interviewees about it, asking about like their situations with The Rock and stuff like that. And when they introduced Cody, they said because Cody's whole thing has been finishing the story, and they went, Cody, a man who can thank the American education system for his inability to finish the story, which was fantastic. It was a great line. Um, and Seth mentions how he's feeling pretty good and he should be cleared to actually compete within the next couple of weeks. So he's going to be at a Mania match, definitely. And then everyone to end the segment, Waller steps back and they bully Austin Theory, who started getting in people's faces, and they just kick the shit out of him. So
as one is to do.
Yeah. So the following match was the men's elimination chamber match. Oops. And before that even starts, seeing that happen first was a little bit scary. Because that means the women's title match of Rhea Ripley versus Rhea Ripley versus I can't remember her name. Nia Jax, there we go. Is the final match, which is cool but also kind of scary. Like, awesome. They are like hyping up Rhea Ripley in front of her home crowd, but they've been known to have the home crowd go home sad, and I was like, they're not gonna make her lose this early, like, or this close to Mania. But I was worried about them putting on an absolute bummer of a match to end it because not a big Nia Jax fan, and she's been known to have some messes, some botches. So I was like, oh dear lord, what are we gonna be doing with this? But the men's match started off pretty fun. They did mention that Orton just beat Chris Jericho's record with his ninth appearance in a Elimination Chamber match, even though he's only
Hmm.
won one. And that was kind of not. It was kind of interesting because Chris Jericho is a very prominent AEW factor now, but that was like it was nice to see that they are very more open to mentioning outside wrestlers if they have had a history with the WWE. So it started off with, well, it contained Drew McIntyre, LA Knight, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, Randy Orton, and Logan Paul for the match. And it
Hmm.
starts off with Drew McIntyre and LA Knight, two people the crowd wants to cheer for. Drew McIntyre, he's got that anti hero bit, and LA Knight is like started off with kind of getting actually his main roster debut started off with him getting a real nerfing his talent gimmick from Vince, and then the more power that they got, they let LA Knight be LA Knight, and he is a huge favorite because he's got the stuff, he's got the moxie.
Hmm.
So he started off very strong, and they after they start off, Kevin Owens enters the fray as the third man, which is kind of interesting because there's not like a common enemy aspect for them. That was like a, it's like all right, anti-hero, real good guy, and then another good guy, and it was just like a, huh, what are we doing here? And it was just them putting people together to make a fantastic match. Um, Kevin Owens was mad dogging like Logan Paul. They've been clearly having some problems, and Logan Paul inside of his pod was a whole had a sharpie, and he drew like made himself look like a devil from a camera perspective, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys think I'm the bad guy," and then he drew like a cartoonesque picture of Kevin Owens. Like Kevin Owens isn't like the most clearly in shape guy, so
Hmm.
it's like, this is Kevin. He stinks. Boo hoo hoo. And obviously that went over wonderfully. Um,
Right,
and
right.
and then they just kind of started like part of the brawl. McIntyre, who's been talking shit on CM Punk, the guy he prayed to get injured and stuff, hits his taunt, tries to hit his finisher, but LA Knight blocks it. Um, and Kevin Owens is just beating people up. He's getting quick moves, quick pins, and then Bobby Lashley enters, and Bobby Lashley is the big man. Dude looks like he is just muscle on muscle, and he doesn't have a skeleton. He's just that much muscle. And he slams people on the floor, throws Drew into the cage wall, and then Orton enters up, and he's on his kick. He hits a bunch of moves, and then he starts hitting his like spike, like very big DDT, making some of their moves. And this is at the point with where they start getting out of control. And then the last person to enter is Logan Paul. And Logan Paul starts to like be like, maybe not, maybe I won't get in. And then Kevin Owens just goes, not a chance. Um,
Wait,
and
it's you can opt out. Well, yeah, I guess you can opt out anything,
he's doing
but
the scumbag technique of being like, "Oh no, sorry," and then Kevin Owens is like, "No, no,
sorry, y'all
you're
showed up
fighting."
for this.
And then he starts slamming Logan into the pod. Logan Paul bashes Kevin Owens' head off the wall, and then Paul Lashley drives Kevin Owens through a pod, and then spears. So it's literally like the most football style, like stereotypical tackle. Logan Paul
Hmm.
through another pod, like through the fake plexi. It is a crazy sight to behold because he's also a scarily strong individual, and he just pushes through the wall, and that kind of knocks them out a little bit. Um, Bobby Lashley gets up again, and he just gets a big old boot to the face from Drew McIntyre and gets eliminated. So he was the first one out. And as he's out, he's looking kind of hurt, like legitimately hurt, and it's kind of a
Hmm.
little up in the air. Um, he he did take a very rough hit. He looked a little extra dazed, so they're taking their time of taking him out of the cage. And as this is happening, LA Knight is just showing off his move set, taking down McIntyre, taking down Orton, countering Randy Orton's RKO pretty much out of nowhere to his own finisher, and is going for the win. And then AJ Styles, a man not in the match, just runs in and starts attacking LA Knight with a steel chair, and then hits his finisher, which is basically he holds him upside down and then body slams with him onto the chair, and then McIntyre gets the pin on him, and people are losing their minds. AJ Styles just became one of the most hated men. LA Knight looked like he was about to, like, he could have won it all, and then AJ Styles just ruins that dream. And that is clearly setting something up for uh, WrestleMania, and hopefully a Saturday night match that I could watch because that'll be awesome.
Oh yeah. Do
And
they? I guess. And remind me, WrestleMania is next month, right?
yes, it is the first weekend of April.
Right. So, is it common to have that quick turnaround from like sort of a story or a drama developing and then answering in the very next match, or is it more common to like sort of play it out over multiple events? Although I guess there are
Yeah,
littler events in between, right?
yeah. There's littler events in between. There's nothing between now and Mania.
Smaller, not littler.
Yeah, but they usually have some shorter form story, or there's been like very shorter form stories over the years where it's just like you got the biggest feuding back and forth for months at a time, and pretty much until somebody gets injured or something. And then there's minor feuds which in the past have just been thrown together, but they've been kind of building to this a little bit. A little bit of drama between LA Knight and AJ Styles because they were both in the Fatal Four at the Royal Rumble, so it's like there's like a seasoning of it, but overall they kind of it's this isn't a surprise jumping, but it's like, oh, this is setting up for something big.
Hmm.
Um, but everything now seems to be done for a reason with some form of logic and payoff in the long run. So that's kind of nice. Um, after after LA Knight gets eliminated, Kevin Owens starts going on a tear, just hitting his finisher, doing all sorts of moves, dropping Logan Paul again, and then Orton just takes him down with an RKO and eliminates him. And then comes like where it starts to get a little bit hinky, where Logan Paul starts diving off the pod onto McIntyre, and then you remember those brass knuckles? And
Oh, yes, yes.
Logan Paul breaks out the brass knuckles again, only to meet an RKO, and Randy Orton eliminates him.
Okay. See,
And
this is why I'm buying in.
yeah, and then Orton counters one of Drew's finishers. Looks like he's gonna set him up, and these guys are having a classic back and forth. He like McIntyre looks like he's going to hit Orton with one of his finishers, but Orton collapses. And it's one of those like, oh, like he just got off of having severe back problems. What's happening? And then Orton just hits Drew McIntyre with a solid RKO. And then Logan Paul shows up and blasts Randy Orton across the face with brass knuckles for Drew McIntyre to win the match and face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Which
Nice.
scummy. It sucks that it was for the final elimination because it doesn't. Drew McIntyre's got enough talent to clearly deserve it, but you didn't have to like set up Logan Paul and Randy Orton for like that. But it's fun to see that happen.
Right.
Um, they take a little breather. They disassemble the cell or what's left of it. They Triple H comes out, and it's just that's where he thanks the crowd of 52,000 plus, and says it's been an incredible night. So like gives everyone a second to relax, to pee, get some snacks because we have the main event: Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley, obviously, crowd favorite. Even in
Mm.
America, crowd favorite. She has some of the highest, like she's the highest regards of pretty much the majority of women wrestlers in the world. They start off with a solid over, like a little bit of a back and forth. Um, they make Nia Jax out to be super strong. She's overpowering Rhea Ripley. She's putting her in all sorts of like chokeholds and things like different types of submission moves. And then Rhea Ripley keeps kicking out, gets hit with a power bomb, kicks out, and then Rhea Ripley starts to turn it around and a little bit, and then Nia Jax just kind of starts being like, "All right, time to finish her." And then Rhea Ripley's like, "Oh, you want to finish me? Sucks." Starts fighting back, shoving her face into or hitting her face into the turnbuckles. Doing starts jumping off the ropes. They take it to the floor. Rhea Ripley knocks Nia Jax down on the side of the ring, which that stuff hurts because that's not really where it's padded.
Right. I was gonna say, just in general, getting thrown into the arena, like in terms of like physically shoved or like it's all metal.
Yeah. And then Rhea Ripley slams or gets slammed onto the broadcast table, which it doesn't break. Which that's when it sucks because when it breaks, you at least keep the momentum a little bit. But she also landed on like the tablets they have, and that looked super painful.
Mm.
And then she gets sent through the table, tries to take her back into the Rhea Ripley gets sent through the table. Nia Jax tries to take her out. Ripley starts to just be like, "No, this is my land, like country," and superplexes. So that is a regular suplex of over like somebody going over somebody else, but from the top rope, and
Mm.
just hits her finisher, gets the W. Rhea Ripley is your continued champion and dominated at the end. And she just starts celebrating her family's front row and having a grand old time. So that is the world before, like, as of the pay per view Well, we're gonna talk about what happens on like the weekly shows afterwards because some pretty big stuff has happened. That's gonna be talked about next week or next time. I don't know,
Ooh,
but it has made WrestleMania bigger than what it has been. So yeah,
right.
I
I was
guess.
gonna say, it seems like this has escalated a lot in the last because it seems like if they just got the whole finishing the fight arc, that probably would have been enough to sell tickets.
Oh
But
yeah, but
it seems like they've decided to just come like really full send.
they are full sending it with an enormous amount of quality talent. It's not like this is a Vince guy who's kind of just thrown in and hopefully he does good. This is like a
Mhm.
oh this is talent on talent, and it is lovely to see.
Because even The Rock, it's like you might not like him getting butted in here, but you can't deny he's a household name. He's like,
Household
this
name,
is
and him getting thrown into it is one of it. It seemed like it was gonna suck at first, but now that it's like bad guy Rock again,
mhm.
it is fantastic. They are just outside of just the talent on talent. It is just adding another person who's fantastic on the mic. He hasn't competed in a single match yet, but he is just making things great.
Now, out of the matches, I'm curious, which was your favorite? Not necessarily,
Ooh.
like, just in terms of watching, and which one you think is most intriguing going into WrestleMania.
So I will say this was a very predictable pay per view. I was pretty much able to predict the winner off from every single one of every single one of these matches who would win, but that doesn't mean it was a bad thing
Mm.
because they still displayed a lot of talent. Probably my favorite of the morning because it wasn't the night here. I was a big fan of the women's match. It it felt like an underrated classic. Um,
Huh.
what I'm obviously very hyped to see Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. That one is probably as of right now one of the matches I'm most excited to see. And then without spoiling anything for next week or next video, whenever we release, they announced a match on last Friday that is going to be maybe not phenomenal, but it's got a big talent feel. And then something they've been hinting at is who's going to face Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. That is something I'm like not featured on this card at all. That is the match I am the most excited for. Or not featured on the Elimination Chamber pay per view at all. Or even really talked about. Because last Monday, people were like, I want to face him. No, I think I have a chance. And every single one of the people that made it, that kind of threw their name into the ring for it, have either previously put on very good matches with Gunther or have the ability to very easily. So it should be a secretly great match, just like how Gunther's match at last WrestleMania was.
Nice. And how would you say the crowd was? Like, this is like a big event for
Yeah,
Australia.
crowd
How did
was
they compare to the US crowds?
um they took a lot less crap. Like they let their feelings be known, and people online were just like, "Oh, this crowd's like kind of dead." It's like, do you not see everybody laser focused on watching the match right now?
Mm.
Like that's kind of like the weird, like the disagreeable part of like people calling like, "Oh, this match is like got no hype around it," and it's just like No, look at the crowd. They might not be reacting to every single move, but they are cheering. They are. None of them are looking down. You don't see people on like clearly staring at their phones. They're laser focused to what is being shown to them right now.
Nice.
Um, so the crowd was fantastic. Oh, I forgot to talk about the blackout moment during the tag team match.
Oh shit.
So cameras cut out of nowhere. You can still hear the commentary on the match, but for the in the tag team match, the cameras just go dark for some reason for a solid 10 seconds. And it's a very weird because it's like, oh, maybe they're building something. And then, but it wasn't like a, oh, what's this happening from the commentary. It was, they were just still talking about the match like nothing happened.
It's like they didn't even notice that the cameras had
They
been
didn't
cut.
even know that the cameras were cut. So it was just like a, oh, is it going to crash? What's happening? And that is because so many people in the arena were flipping off Dominic Mysterio. They had to the only way they could censor it is by cutting the camera,
That's insane.
which is
That's so funny.
hilarious and fantastic at the same time. Because think about it. Like you're trying to be the bad guy and you're getting a lot of booze and stuff, but for them to technically derail an entire event just for that, fantastic.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So that wraps up this episode. We will be back next time, and being in the little bit of a lull between big events, we're going to be talking about some more WrestleMania history. So we're going to be talking about some of the biggest
Ooh,
stars. We're going to talk some of the biggest matches and some of the like other stuff that has come from it. With keeping up to
awesome.
date of the like current going ons. So we got a next week is going to be all about just some of the biggest stars over the years and just kind of their stat sheets, some big things about them, and all that fun stuff. So as we leave here, if you're watching on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. If you're watching on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. Two birds, one stone. And listen to the Disney Desk because we're in a
Thank
weird
you.
football lull, so we can't promote that show.
Oh, yeah, that is true. Although the draft is slowly getting over here, so we'll finally be able to talk about that.
Yeah. But check out Carter on the Disney Desk. He talks about Disney things, like movies.
Yes, we have a very fun idea for March. You guys are just going to have to tune in and see. This week, we decided to do a Patreon drop of a trivia episode we did way back in like February. Um, and yeah, fun stuff planned for the month of March.
Love that. So until then, we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening.